Hello, this video will be about how I go about arranging songs on the ukulele. I like to use a style called chord melody a lot in my arrangements. That's when you have the melody. Say for example, we have just a C, D, E, but then we add the chords, which will say C, G, C, and we'll put them together in some sort of way. So today I prepared a small sheet for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'll probably put it up on the screen somewhere as we go along, but if you want the PDF of it down below as well to see better, I'll leave it in the link below. So to arrange songs for the ukulele, there are some things that you may want to at least be familiar with before you start to make it easier. Of course, you don't have to have too much knowledge to do simpler songs, but it'd be very good and give you more options if you have some sort of knowledge about these stuff. I think the most important thing is knowing your notes on the ukulele, or at least being able to figure it out by ear would be good as well. Another thing you'd like to do is know your chords, at least the ones you're going to be using for whatever song you want to arrange, as well as their inversions. So inversions are different ways to play the same chord on different places of the ukulele. So what I just did, there was a G chord in 3 different places. There's a lot of different ways to play the chords, but at least being able to figure out how to find those inversions would be very helpful, whether it be music theory or looking it up on Google. That works too. For Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, what I did is I did what I would normally do first on the PDF, which is finding out the chords, which are written above the staff or the melody, and then also the melody, figuring out the melody. So for both of them, you could, if you know how to read sheet music, you can search for the melody, maybe even the chords through sheet music, like piano sheet music or something like that. Or you can also figure it out by ear, which chords to play in with the melody. There's also a lot of websites where you can figure out the chord, or you can search up the chords, and then sometimes even transpose it to different keys. Once you have the chords and the melody, the first thing I do is I make sure that the range of the notes fits within the ukulele. So for me, I have 18 frets. That's my highest note. So I have a range from C, middle C, all the way up to this higher E flat. So a little more than 2 octaves is what I have to work with. So as long as your melody fits within that range, you should be okay to go. Another thing to consider is what key the song is normally in. If you want to play with the original key and it fits on the ukulele, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to make it easier to play on the ukulele, because some keys aren't as easy to play, or some chords aren't as easy to play, like if you have to play F sharp instead of G, normally ukulele players would stay away from that F sharp. So doing what we call transposing will really help in that case. So what transposing is pretty much changing all the notes and the chords and moving it up or down together. So if you have like a G, you move it down to like an F. So if you have a C after that, you move it down to a B flat kind of thing. There's a lot of, it's kind of complicated. So you don't have to. I'm not going to really go over transposing in this video, but just know that you may have to change the key that you're playing in and the notes that you have to play in the melody to kind of make it fit within the ukulele. When I transpose for the songs that I arrange, I like to keep my melody usually on this bottom A string and sometimes on the E string as well. And it just depends on the song itself and how the melody and the chords go. So there's no correct key. Well, the correct key would be the original key to play in. But when you're transposing for an instrument, especially a solo instrument, I think it's important to kind of choose a key that fits the instrument and the style that you want to arrange in as well. For chord melodies, it's good to keep it on the bottom 2 strings, the melody at least, because that way you won't have too much trouble fitting the chords and the picking together. Take everything I say in this video with a grain of salt, because there's no correct answer, and my way of arranging isn't the only way. So with that said, let's get started with learning how to arrange Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the ukulele. So once we have the chords and the melody, now it's just kind of figuring out ways to put it together. So with arranging, a lot of the techniques you've played before, or if you've learned before and practiced, will be very helpful in arranging songs that you want to play as, or that you are arranging. So for now, I'll keep it technically very simple. So I'll just do regular picking and strumming, and then we'll kind of go from there. So the first thing we have is the melody on the 3rd fret, G, on the E string. And then we have G as a chord. So now what I want to do is figure out a way to play the G chord and this G together. So luckily for this song, it's not too hard to figure out, because we have the G and the G chord, and the G is in the G chord. So right now, all we have to do is make sure this G is the most prominent, or the most prominent, or the note that we hear the most, kind of, because that's the melody. So what I would do is, instead of playing the whole G chord, I would just play the top 3 strings and end on that G. Maybe like that. And then this bottom string you don't have to play at all. And then after that, it's 3rd fret again. So one thing you could do is just do the same thing you did twice in a row. You could do something like that. But when it comes to figuring out how to put the chords and the melody together, not every chord needs to go, or not every melody note needs to have a chord above it. Sometimes it works out, but if it's the same chord, and if it's the same chord over the melody, sometimes you don't want to play it all the time. So in this case, what I would do is play that first one with the chord, and then play the second one just picked. So it sound. Again, you can do both, but I think that it would kind of make it kind of sound like too blocky if you use the chords all the time. So you don't always need to put the chords with the melody, but when you can, it's good to, and then sometimes it's good not to. Again, there's no correct answer, so whatever you think sounds the best is the most important. If you kind of have to think about what to do, or how many times to do something, or when to put the chords together, when not to, kind of use your ear as your judgment to decide on whether or not you want to do that or not. So continuing on from that G with the 3rd fret, up next, we stick on the G chord, but our melody moves up to the 5th fret on the A string. So now what we want to do is figure out a way to play the G chord with that 5th fret on the bottom. In this case, what I would do is I'd hold the G chord and then just add that 5th fret on the bottom, and that works itself out. And I'll do the same thing, strum and then 1 pick. In this case, I chose to stick with this G chord inversion and just add my melody note onto that. But what you could have also done is use a different G inversion, which would be this G, because it has the melody note already in the chord. So it'd be. So that's also another possibility. I kept it to this chord shape just because it's coming from the same chord, so I don't have to move my hands as much. So when you're arranging songs, it's good to kind of think about the playability as well. Because if you kind of move all over the place, it makes it harder to play sometimes, and the sound might not be what you want, because using, instead of this D, you have these higher notes. So again, the most important thing is to trust your ear and kind of decide from there. And also if it's too hard, then you can kind of make it easier. Another thing I might do for this part is just play the first G, since it doesn't change chords, depending on how I want it to sound. But for now, we'll stick with the two strums. The one strum on the first of each time the melody changes. And then after that, we have the 7th fret E on the A string with a different chord this time, the C major chord. So for this one, again, what we'll do is figure out how to play this melody note on the 7th fret along with the C chord on the bottom. So for this one, what we can do is just move that 3rd fret up into the 7th fret, and we have the melody with the C chord. If you don't like how you have all these open strings, just the one note, you can also use different C inversions, like this one, whatever you know or can find online. If not, you can keep it simple, just like that. So inversions, again, it's up to you. But for now, we'll stick with this 7th fret. And then after that, we have the G chord again, along with the 5th fret as the melody again. So what we can do is the same thing, but this time is only one pick on the melody. So we can just strum down one time. And that'll be like the first 2 measures of the song. So what we have is something like that. After that, we get the melody note on the 3rd fret this time, on the A string, along with the C chord. So this case is another one where the melody lines up with the chord. So we don't have to change anything actually. We can just do the same strum and pick. And then the next one, the 2nd fret with the G, same thing. And then the next one is our first D chord, but then the melody is also on the open bottom, which is part of this D chord that we're holding right now. So we don't have to change anything. And then the next one is a G with that 3rd fret, just like the very first G we played. So we can do the same thing there. And that'll be the first line of Twinkle Twinkle on the PDF. So we have for the next line, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and change up what technique I'm going to use to kind of show something different. So the next line, we have the 5th fret as a melody along with the G chord again. So instead of doing what we normally did, which would be the strum and the pick, maybe this time I want to do a little bit more picking, so I'll do something like that. So I still have the melody, but instead of strumming, I'm adding a little extra picking on the bottom. So pretty much what I'm doing on the top 3 strings is doing C string, E string, D string, E string. So I do C and E string along with the first 5th fret pick, and then G and E string with the second one. So it'll be, so that's just a picking pattern that I've used before. So using any sort of pattern or strumming or techniques that you've used before in other songs or when you're practicing, you can kind of utilize those and add them into your own arrangements. So when you're arranging, try to think about all the techniques you've learned before, and then try to see if it'll fit somewhere. And if not, then you can kind of keep with what you had before and just keep it going through the song, and then slowly And you can always come back to it later when you wanna, if you wanna change anything. So for this part of the song, maybe I'll stick with that pattern for the next two measures. So we have the G with the 5th fret on the as a melody, and then we have the C with the 3rd fret again, just like before. And I'll just add the picking pattern this time to it. And then G with the 2nd fret on the as a melody, so same thing, but with the picking pattern. And then next chord will be D with the melody on the bottom string again. So, but there's only one pick for the melody, so I'll do the same pattern, but I won't pick the bottom string the second time. So that part would sound. And then the next two measures are exactly the same, so you could keep it exactly the same like how I just did, or you could change it up again, or go back, for example, going back to the strum and pick, or doing something completely different. So for this time, we'll see how it sounds with the strum and pick after we do it with the picking pattern I did before. And then I'll see if I like it or not, and if I don't, then I'll think of something else. So the two times would be. Personally, I didn't really like that. I don't think it fit, or it's smoothly transitioned. So I think in this case, what I'll do is I'll keep it the same. Or maybe what I could do instead is I can switch it. So I can start with the strumming instead, and then do the picking afterwards. So I'll start from the very beginning, and I'll do the strumming first, and then the picking the second time, and see how that sounds all together. So what I have is. Still feels a bit off to me, so maybe what I'll do is kind of smoothen out that transition between the first time I do it with the strumming and then the second time, so I get something like. Maybe something like that. So what I did is I started the picking pattern earlier, so instead of doing the last D with the strum, I picked it with a pattern to prepare for the next one. So when you're arranging, what you also kind of want to consider is the transition between the parts you're arranging, making sure it sounds good and transitions how you want it to. Again, this part is using your ear, kind of figuring out which sounds the best. And then the second time that we got to that part, I went back to the strumming, because after that, the very last line is the same as the beginning, which I want to go back to that strumming part. So I think that transition would be better with a one strum, I think. But let's see how it sounds. So this would be the second line of the PDF. So we have. And then back to the first line. And that would be the whole song, somewhat arranged. Of course, that was a very simple way of playing it, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how I kind of put the chords and the melody together, and then my thought process of how I choose to put the sections together and when to change up any patterns I do or anything like that. There's a lot of different possibilities that I could have gone for that maybe I didn't, but again, there's so many different possibilities. Hopefully this video was somewhat helpful in kind of going over how I would arrange chord melodies. This is a very simple practice song to kind of go about. When it gets to a little bit more complicated songs, it might be a little bit harder. You have to kind of think about it a little bit more to figure out what would work best. If you'd like to see how I kind of go over those more complex songs, I think just leave a comment below and then I'll get to another video kind of like this. And if not, then you can kind of take a look at my arrangement or anyone else's arrangements to kind of see how they're putting the chords and the melody together. It's good to analyze other people's music or arrangements in this case to kind of see what they're doing, kind of take some influence from what they're doing, and that will kind of help give you ideas and help you improve upon your own arranging. Also, I've started a Patreon, so if you're interested in supporting the channel, please check it out. And if not, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.